actor extraordinaire, a guy who's been around in our world for a long time, 14-year NFL veteran and friend of the family, and he is on location, so he's agreed to come on and spend some time with us, talking and chopping it up about whatever we can get him to talk about. That's okay. But thanks, Matty, for being here, and tell us what's going on.
Well, what do you mean I'm a friend of the freaking program?
I'm the friend. I'm the friend of the family. You guys are the family.
Right. This is two Willigs talking with somebody else involved. Yeah. Hey, I'm zooming from Brisbane, Australia. In this age of COVID, in the acting world, I've been very fortunate enough to garner a job that has brought me here. I can't really talk about what it is, but it's a TV series, and for NBC, it's going to come out soon, and I'm in about 6 out of the first 11 episodes. Nice. I will say that I'm playing a wrestling character named Andre the Giant. And most people know who that is.
Oh yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun getting ready for this. And I'm still in quarantine. I'm in my hotel room / apartment. And it's been, I'll tell you what, Chuck, you know this. You've been kind of cooped up a little bit. We've all been cooped up, but being in a hotel room that is little more than a 1-bedroom studio. I do have a kitchen and some refrigerator and a stove and everything like that, and have groceries, but it is no joke being stuck in your room. It is no joke.
How long? What day is this for you, Matty?
I will shuffle off. I have a balcony, which is my savior. I can go out there a couple of times a day and yell at people and
you can do the Titanic.
Try to get girls to take their tops off from the balcony. But other than that, it's good. I'm doing table reads every day with the cast, and again, wish I could talk about it, but the bottom line is it's going to be a lot of fun, and a lot of people will get to see it. So,
who did you go up against for that part? Do you know any of those guys, or do they pay hand?
You know what, Chuck? As far as I know, when I went on to audition for it, I kind of passed what they call, the first round of auditions, and I met with the creators and writers of the show first. And I literally had a couple of days notice to get ready for the audition. And when I walked in and did the audition, there was no one else. I take that back. There was one other guy that was like, he was 6'11", but he was really skinny, and he looked nothing like the character.
He wasn't as pretty as you.
Like Andre. I had to take certain offense to that I was ugly enough to get it. But yeah, after a 10-minute audition, they looked at me immediately and kind of gave me that, and I've been doing this long enough to know you can tell when they like what they see, or they're, or vice versa, when they go like, okay, yeah, thanks. But they actually asked me if I spoke French, if I knew French, because I kind of had some French lines. And I said, no, I just, I've been working on it. And so they were really impressed right away. So I think the bottom line is that I think right away they had me in mind. Because of COVID, we were supposed to in May, but I found out like in January that I got the job. And so I've been waiting a while for it.
Chuck told me about what you were doing. Chuck told me
I'll tell you what, like I said, it's pretty cool to have a job at this point, when a lot of guys, a lot of actor friends of mine are not working at all and are scared to death about what the future looks like. To have a job here for the next couple of months and be overseas and enjoying a little bit of this life is pretty cool.
Chuck told me about the role, and it was so weird because I had just watched the Andre the Giant documentary. I think it was ESPN possibly made it. And I'm telling you, I had no idea. I was not a WWF guy. I knew who he was, Princess Bride and all that business. But what an incredible life. I mean, there's such a juicy role.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
It is. And
the
again,
amount he
I'm
drunk.
only, legendary.
Legendary.
Legendary. And yeah, it really is. I've been practicing for this all my life, man.
Your whole life. I feel like a JV guy compared to that guy.
But you know, yeah, it was really interesting to get into his story, to get to know him a little bit, and you know, understanding the hardships of trying to physically, you know, evolve into him. Chuck knows this. I gained. I'm on about 25 pounds right now from where I was before, and it was mostly just because, you know, number one, he wasn't ripped at all. He was a big giant human being, number one, and number two, he had a gut. So I had to kind of work my way into that, and kind of, because I really wanted to kind of portray that and kind of have that look. Which
you could have hired me, Matt.
I have to work out so hard. There are many people
I could have helped you out,
taking that just alone on the eating alone.
How much did he weigh, Matt?
Yeah, so you know, reports are anywhere from 450 to 500 pounds. Yeah. I probably, in reality, was probably more right around 400. And so, you know, there's no way I can get close to that. But I went from about 290, and now I'm tipping at about maybe between 315, 320. And again, most of that is down here in the gut level. So, you know, it's great. I'll have wigs on, and it's going to look amazing. It's really exciting, and the producers of the show seem to really like what I'm doing so far as the voice and bringing that and all that stuff. So it's cool.
Awesome. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're glad you made it safe. What day of quarantine is this for you?
I'm on day 10, I think. I think Saturday is when I get out. It's for me, it's Wednesday. You're on Tuesday, and so I get out on Saturday, which will be your Friday.
Gotcha.
That's all. That's been a trip, trying to coordinate with my daughters, making calls and figuring out the times and all that stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna have to edit in some funny sayings about it. Put up the time in both places. Yeah, good, man, good. Well, we wanted to talk to you about all kinds of things, Matt. We're like I said, we're glad you came on and got a chance to chat a little bit about that. And you know, we're interested in some stuff that we haven't heard so much about, and so what I wanted to do is we're gonna play a little clip, and then we're gonna talk, and we're gonna see how the technology works for us, and bust it up a little bit, and then we'll ask a few questions and play another clip. And so we'll start there. At what point in your career was NCIS? Does that look like a part that was a little bit different from some of the things that you had done before?
It was, yeah. You know, the character, he was a Mensa character, a really smart guy, and got that part. And it was already booked as kind of an arc character. You know, I was going to play at least 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, and so that was exciting. It's funny that scene that you first played was like my first day of work, and I had a little bit of a tongue twister, a couple of lines in there, and it's amazing. You know, that was in, God, I can't remember now what year that was. It was probably a good 10 or so years ago. And, you know, I've been doing this for a while, but you still get nervous, you know, especially the scenario leading up to that was first day of work, 7 o'clock in the morning. I get there, and Mark Harmon is standing there waiting for me. Now, as we talk sports, you know, being a UCLA guy and me an SC guy, there was always this, you know, how is this going to work? And just far as would we say anything? Would we bring it up? And he, God love him, he was there standing there going, man, I can't tell you how excited we are to have you here. You know, and he kind of went on, you know, he knows being an ex-football guy and some of the characters that I do play versus what they wanted me to do and how it was going to be different, and how they were just really excited to have
awesome.
Someone who could pull off and have the chops to do it. It was really cool. And it set the tone as our relationship over the next several weeks, just how much he had confidence in me and was really looking forward to working together. And so that first scene, I was really nervous. and it took a couple of takes to get it. And with TV, you know, it's boom, 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 get your lines out and let's move on because we got a full day. And it took me 2 takes, maybe 3. And the 3rd take, I nailed it without any problem. And then it was like on the way, took a breath and moved on. But it was a great experience. Top-notch show. You know, those guys have been doing that show. Even before that, he did JAG. And so he'd been working with the same crew for like literally a decade already.
Nice.
And it was a well-run show. And we had a lot of fun.
How'd the other characters like you?
You know, I good. You know, it's always funny to see other actors who maybe have a sense of what I had done previous, you know, playing ball, and some of them are really interested in that. Some could give a shit less and have no idea. And when I kind of mention it or it comes up, they're shocked. But yeah, from the Abby character, Polly Perrette, who I kind of had a relationship with in the show. We got along really well. Like I said, Mark Harmon and I were getting along great, and everybody was really super cool. You know, when you come on a show like that and you're doing, you know, more than a couple episodes where people actually get to know you, as opposed to coming on for one guest star show and then you're kind of in and out, and people don't even, you know, they don't even have time to kind of recognize that you're around. But when you're around for a couple months, you really get the sense of how cool it is to be a recurring character or have a show that you're in for a while. That's kind of the goal of, I think, of a lot of actors, and it was for me too. Especially is always to kind of have something where I can do something for a period of time and let people get to see kind of the whole body of work and kind of who you are. So that's always really cool.
Do you feel like in your career, have you seen it go from like this narcissistic, everyone's a dick in Hollywood, to you got to be a quality person if you want to have a quality show that's going to last a decade or 20 years or whatever? I mean, Mark Harmon, you just got done saying he's a great guy, you know, and it makes sense that he's just put in 20 years and got paid, you know?
Right.
Did you find that in your life, or?
You know, like everything, anywhere you go, there's going to be dicks.
Yeah.
But I have found that a couple things. Number one, usually everybody's pretty nice, and everybody is there to do a job, and especially in that case where whether you're an actor or you're a grip behind the scenes or you're the director, everybody's so focused on working that if you do have time, like on that show specifically, we got to sit and there was a lot of time where the actors would sit and have time together, and everybody was remarkable and cool. You know, you're going to find every now and then that there are some people out there that don't have time for you, just aren't interested in giving you a second of their time. You know, but again, like I said, that shit happens everywhere. What I have found in the last several years, since everyone's been woke, is people tread lightly on what they say. You know, nobody wants to offend the wrong person or wants to say the off-color joke that might seem a little bit insensitive or
throw the line on Instagram
that might have made you laugh 10 years ago. Yeah.
Christian Bale, right?
I've
Batman.
been there a couple times.
Christian
Bale.
Right. After everybody, man, he's like, fuck you.
And it got recorded, right? Which should have never been recorded.
Never.
But that's the case. You got to watch what you say all the freaking time. And I think it's kind of squashed a little bit of the individual personality of a lot of people. But again, as you guys know, I like to have fun, and I try to do it wherever I am, whether it's on set or freaking in my house having a drink. But sometimes it comes over and sometimes it doesn't. You know, the funny thing, I hope I'm not rambling too much, but the funny thing is that it coincides with your billing on the show. You know, I know that on this show I'm on, in the position I am, I can go on set, and even though, you know, the job's serious and you have a job to do, I can expand myself a little bit on this show, whereas some things you come in, you know, whether you're working with somebody that's major star who like you just want to keep your head down and work, or there's sometimes where you can kind of expand yourself and kind of let yourself be seen a little bit, more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So every job's different. Every job is different. So that's a long way to answer your question there, Tommy.
The word on the street, Matt, is that you got chops, so I'm sure you gained some respect in those rooms, and that's been cool to see you. You played some rooms that, have guys like Mark Harmon, that those guys, it's no joke, those guys have been around. So if you do quality work, and as far as scripts and things goes, what was the next most involved series that you've been involved with? What's next?
The last couple of years, obviously, doing Concussion was a big one. And again, that's kind of an interesting story of how I got that one and how that came about. What else?
You got tons
Agents
of
of Shield was a good one.
Yeah. Tell us about that. That's
well, so they were not necessarily looking for a football player. I played Justin Strelzik, an ex-ball player who ended up killing himself, and so I had a small part in the movie Concussion, and I went in to see the casting director, and again, you can kind of feel the room, and it was actually a casting assistant who took my first audition, and the scene required some emotion, and I ended up full on crying, getting really emotional, and it kind of dealt with football and how my brain was, working the character. That's what it was about.
With
so
CTE,
I got
the idea was the movie.
Yeah.
You having CTE,
and the idea that I was sort of my character. The idea that my sort of character was starting to fade a little bit. Anyways, so I did the audition and got really emotional. Ended up crying, and you could see that turn of like, oh shit, I didn't expect that from you. And immediately got a call back from my agent saying, they're seriously, they loved what you did and want you to come back almost immediately to to see. Yeah, again, Chuck, like I said, the expectation sometimes when you don't really know what I've done or seen much of what I've done, and a lot of my stuff has been very simple, kind of big guy type, easy stuff to do, to kind of access a little bit more for people, and to let them see, the idea that the next football player can do a little bit more. So, went to the audition, met with the producer and the director, and again, they wanted to see if I could do it again. So we spent an hour in the room working it, and they didn't know if it was a one-off. They thought, oh, shit, could he actually do it on command? So they were having me do all these things where I stayed in this emotional state for almost an hour, and kind of browbeat me, just to kind of see, hey, can he adjust to certain things on the move? Can he do this and this and that? And I tell you what, I came out of that thing going, holy shit, man, they better give me this job, because I had to work hard for this one.
That's awesome.
And so it worked out, and it was a cool, short, only about a week or so of working, but to work with David Morse, who ended up playing Mike Webster, who was a very accomplished, very serious actor, and have some things like that where the director was really digging what I was doing, was really a cool thing, And,
that's very cool.
Again, yeah. So
what is it? When you're doing the crying thing, is it a mechanical thing, or are you really accessing some emotions? And can you tell us about that, or is that private?
No. It's not easy for me. I'm finding as I go along the last couple of years, it's gotten easier. Mostly, I think, because of the things that I can draw on. It's basically drawing on something. I'll be honest with you, music plays a big part for me. I love when I have certain things like that. I love playing music up to the last second. That puts me there. Having girls, having daughters, thinking about certain things can put you there.
Nice. Nice.
It was funny. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was reading something, reading lines for this with my daughter, who she'll appease me every time and read with me, and I was telling her about a song that I was telling her about a song that I really like, and it was a song from I'm not going to remember the name. Denzel Washington, when he has the Bible, he's anyways, there's a song from that. No, what do I
Eli, the Book of Eli.
Book of Eli.
Yes, the Book of Eli. The Book of Eli.
There's
a song that plays throughout that movie that's really cool, just somber little song, and I told her about it. I was telling her she was getting anxious about something. I said, I'm going to send you this song and just put it in your room and play it. And I put it on, and immediately went somewhere in my head, not realizing it, and started crying in front of her. And she was like, what the hell is going on? And it was bizarre. I didn't even realize it. So again, long story, I'm finding it easier as I go along in life to access those things. It's not easy because, when you're in a situation like in Concussion, actually, when there's a scene where I get angry and physical with my wife on camera and storm out the door. And we had to shoot this for a while. And me and my co-star we'd hold hands between takes. Wow. And just feel that sort of sadness together. It's funny, it takes me back there for a second. Yeah. But just holding her hand as I was like supposed to run off first, and then she was supposed to follow me. Again, it's hit and miss. Whenever I really try hard and do it, it doesn't work. It's just, it has to sort of come.
Nice.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
and besides, most. Go ahead.
No, just the you see stuff, whatever it is that triggers you, that gets you back to that place. I get it sometimes in the roar of the crowd. The national anthem at the beginning of a game and shit. Where you just it takes you someplace. So I got tell us a little bit about what it was like to do the West Wing. You had a neat scene in the West Wing. It was a great timing of the whole thing toward the end of the show, and two great guys that you worked with on that. And,
that's an all-time great.
Having met Alan Alda, one of the coolest fucking moments ever. He came into the dressing room. I was getting out. It was in makeup, and there was another actor, and I had already talked to him about playing football, and he walked in and introduced himself, and I just, I was a huge fan. I was a MASH fan forever. And
Paper Lion.
He said, "Yeah, Paper Lion."
He was the quarterback.
He was the freaking quarterback.
For God's sake! Yeah, that's awesome.
Unbelievable, right?
What a kook!
A guy who couldn't look less athletic if he tried.
Totally.
But Alan Alda walks in, and the other actor says, "Matthew played football for 14 years," and just as sweet as can be, looked at me and looked at him, and he goes, "Well, not today. He's not." Just one of those, like, today you're an actor. Yeah. And so,
like a back east
quick story. I was auditioning. I was auditioning for that, and it was one of my early goals was to get on the West Wing, because Chuck, as you know, that show was it.
Greatest written show ever. Greatest written show on the planet ever.
Unbelievable.
You should have told Alan Alda that you played football. That was your character.
Exactly.
It wasn't official football.
Which I did. I was actually, they were able to use my own name. If you listen closely, it says our own Chicago Bear, Matt Willig,
nice.
Which is pretty cool, actually.
Nice.
But so I was auditioning for that, pretty nervous about it.
Tell us what the role was.
It was a goal of mine.
Talk about what the role was for a second.
I played myself. So at that point in the show, Alan Alda and Jimmy Smits were presidential candidates, and we were at a businessman's rally in Chicago. And me being sort of the character was sort of a famous football player who was announcing or introducing both candidates. And so I was walking into the audition and nervous as heck, and kind of took a big breath and looked at two of the producers, and they said, "Look, just so you know, you've got the job already.
You don't have to worry.
What we want to talk about is football. We're big Jets fans, and we've known of you since the Jet days. And so let's just spend this time talking about football. So,
Beautiful.
you know, I can never say that football never helped me get a gig,
Yeah,
because
man.
That's fantastic.
it was pretty friggin' awesome. Yeah,
And it's
especially
an
at that time. That was one of the first.
scene. Too. Describe the scene for us, Matt.
It's a cool scene.
Yeah.
You know, it starts with I introduce Jimmy Smith's character, and you know, I shake their hands, and Jimmy is this kind of you know, younger, virile sort of candidate, and he's, you know, rambunctious, I guess, or whatever. He's ready to go. And then I introduce Alan Alda, and previous to that, Alan Alda, his character, he's an older guy, and he had been shaking so many hands that his hand was really sore, like literally, it was hurting him. And I introduce Alan, his character comes out, and they literally, you know, freeze on my hand, sort of holding out to him, and with this dun dun dun, you know, and I ended up shaking his hand and break it. I break his hand just by shaking it.
Yeah, and it's like somebody breaking. It's like somebody breaking Trump's hand tonight.
Yeah,
you know, shaking his hand and hand, or Biden snapped about 3 digits or 4 digits off.
You know, Matt, I just gotta tell you, I didn't know that I didn't know that story, but my son Kyle shook your hand when he was 7 years old. We were at the Firehouse Grill, Uptown Whittier, and he shook your hand, and he came back. He said, "Dad, it's like shaking hands with a pillow." He was just like, he was fascinated. It's so
good. Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
100%.
That means I didn't shake it too hard.
100%. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Oh yeah. He was in awe though.
He was like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. That's cool. That's cool. I love to hear that. That's
I
awesome.
didn't know that we're gonna bring that up. That's cool.
The next one. Go ahead, Maddie. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, you know, you never know with these things. Like I said, you know, I only when I talk to guys like you and do some interviews do I really stop and think about some of these things, how cool they are. Because you kind of go through life and you kind of just go, yeah, that's cool, but you know, whatever. And but they are really cool moments. So
that's awesome.
Well, we'll pop into another cool moment real quick, because I want you to tell a little bit about being the only guy to survive the grip of Dexter.
Street cred, baby.
History of Dexter that got away once and then came back to get himself chopped up and stuff. That's
another one. That's another one of those you visited me on that set, Chuck.
Yeah.
Did you know that was going to be a two series arc, or was that just something that turned into a longer thing?
No, you know, it was, they were thinking about making it longer. They weren't really sure. They knew at least a couple episodes, again, because that was the first character that was going to survive Dexter.
Nice.
Every other episode up to that point, he had killed somebody at the end. And I lost my train of thought. But so yeah, again, another story that goes along with that.
I mean, besides all the training you got at St. Paul and how to be Mexican,
we're to go on the basic level of Mexican. I don't pretend that that's anything but the almost somewhat stereotypical vato.
If you would have had
that's okay, man.
Been 3 episodes, you would have been in trouble. 2 episodes, okay. 3 episodes, terrible.
Yeah,
you're so right, man. If they had given me that much more dialogue, I would have been fucking. I would have been.
Well, those
crucified.
are we're gonna try to edit in the cuts while you're talking about this when we go back to do the cuts on this thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a cool. It'll be a cool deal.
Yeah, no, I so I almost didn't do that show. I had to make a choice. My ex-wife and I was at an event where at the time I was making really good money, and I ended up buying a trip to Maldives in an auction. I ended up bidding and winning a trip to the Maldives that we had a year to book, and so we booked it kind of like 7 months after, and we had booked it, you know, in time. And this job came up, and it was going to work through the point where I was supposed to be at the Maldives, and ended up, again, long story short, canceling the Maldives trip for the show, and ended up getting screwed on the back end with the trip, because the year had come and gone and couldn't use it. So I spent like 15 grand and never even used never even got to go on the trip. But again, looking back on it now, it was a great spot for me. It was a perfect little thing on the show that, you know, even at the time, I don't think people realized that it was going to be so big. And so it's just at the end of the first year, into the second. And it's funny, I look back on that and I think I want that body back. That was the body that I had worked really hard for at the end of my career. And I was down like the 280 and I was feeling all ripped up and feeling pretty good. But a lot of fun with that character. The actors were great. And, you know, I wish it could have gone a little longer. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's the ripped up guy.
Can you give it?
That's yeah.
Can you give it? Can you give us the line, the Devil's Candy line? Do you remember that?
No, I can't. No. I
okay. Heroin. Devil's Candy. In the best Hispanic accent that he could bring.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
That was, you know what? I look at that and go, that was perfect, man. And again, Chuck, Tom, they questioned whether I could do that scene. It's weird. I look back on it because they ended up clearing the room, and only me, the actor, and the director were in there. And I think they just wanted to make sure that I could do that. And it's weird looking back on it that they would do that, but I did the scene, and I think that like the director literally came up to me and goes, I don't know what they're worried about, because that was freaking awesome. But there was a little bit of a worry that, again, I was sort of new in the biz, and could this ex-athlete sort of pull off this one-on-one scene?
You had no idea you came from the depths of.
I asked him if I could smoke. I asked him if I could smoke in it and light a cigarette during the thing, and it was just, if you look at it, it's perfect. I give a line and the smoke billows out. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, I know it, Matt. I know in football you've had some guys you worked with, some coaches that you worked with that you followed around. Do you have any experiences like that in acting, where you did such a good job on one thing that you got another gig from it, or because it's the same director, same writer?
You know, it's a great question, because it's always the goal is to kind of, you know, it's not what you know most of the time, it's who you know. And it was a little weird, Tom, for me, and this is sort of an admission, it was a little weird for me coming out of football. And if you know me my disdain for coaches for the most part is pretty high. And
Raise
I
your
think
hand for your
coaches are freaking evil motherfuckers. Yeah, exactly. Why the fuck am I doing this show? But so it was really hard for me early on to sort of latch on to somebody or extend myself to being open to going, hey man, let me get your number, or let's keep in touch. So I didn't do that early on. I found myself doing that a lot more in the last couple of years. Again, maybe it's because my work's gotten better, and I think you feel a little more comfortable doing that. When I did We're the Millers, got to know the director pretty well. And from that, we had kept in touch. He tried to put me in something else that didn't work. It ended up putting me in a series that nobody really knew about, but it was this show called Ryan Hansen Solves Crimes. It ended up being a YouTube show, but it was pretty popular. Anyways, from that, he booked me on that, and had a blast with that show. And you know, now he's working with Dwayne Johnson a lot. And so, you know, it's all about kind of keeping in contact with these people. There was another director that I worked on a movie called The Employer, which again, some of my better work, just because it allowed me to do more things in it. Yeah.
What was the head guy? What was the head guy in that movie's name, Matty? The silver-haired guy.
why are you going to have these moments, man?
Okay, that's
Malcolm
all. Never mind.
McDowell.
We can move on.
And Malcolm, yeah.
Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell.
Stud.
Yes.
No, it
Yeah.
wasn't Malcolm McDowell. That's
Yeah, it
somebody
was.
else. Was it Malcolm McDowell?
Yeah.
The
I think
British.
so.
I think it's, yeah. Anyway, yeah, who was also very great. He paid me a really cool compliment during the premiere of the thing I did with him, where he said that, you know, he had heard that I was billed as an ex-football player, and he goes, you know, fuck that, this guy can do it. You know, one of those things, which was really kind of a cool moment for me, coming from him.
Cool. How was your time with McLovin and Jack Black and stuff on year one?
Year one was another one to talk about, which looking back on was one of the favorite times so far. First real like on location sort of shoot. We were in Louisiana. We went to Louisiana, North Carolina, and New Mexico in about 4 months, and so got to know them really well. Jack was awesome, all over the place. To watch him sort of do his thing was crazy. McLovin at that point, he was an 18-year-old kid. But we actually got along. We actually got along and hung out. I will say that there was a lot of dope smoking in that production, and there's a story. You guys can keep it in or put it out if you want. But I'll tell you a story about Harold Ramis.
Can we keep it in?
Oh, Ramis.
Harold Ramis. That's what I was trying to tell you, Tommy. Harold Ramis. There you go.
Harold Ramis. And again, walked into that audition with Harold, and I was at the Beverly Hills Hotel with Harold in a big conference room, like a dining room. Scared out of my mind. It's crazy how nervous you can get. But with him and Jack, and they're laughing and talking, and I'm walking in trying to freaking book a nice freaking movie, and again, had a great audition with Jack and just riffed with him a little bit, and Harold at the end said, see, he goes, he's the quintessential freaking captain of the football team. That's what we need, and so ended up having a real cool relationship with Harold, just because, again, he saw me. He was a big sports nut, Chicago guy, and he saw me as the leader of the cool kids, and so anyways, cut to, we were in Louisiana, and Harold that whole crew is notoriously, they were dope smokers, and one night we were having a party we were having a get together up in his presidential suite, and he nods to me at the end of the night, stick around afterwards. I'm like, fuck yeah. And it's everyone leaves except me and his DP, his director of photography, who is a good friend of his from many, many years. And we go into the bathroom. Again, this is a 60-year-old man who's done whatever he's wanted to for his whole life. We go into the bathroom. We do the towel under the door, and the three of us smoke a joint. Like one of us was in the bathtub. One of us was sitting on the top of the toilet, and then the other one was like sitting on top of the sink. Like we were like literally 15-year-old kids trying to get away with murder. We sat and smoked a joint and had the best time ever. It was really cool. And for him to do that and kind of open himself up to me to do that I felt like it was really, really, really cool. And awesome. He was always really sweet. And it was a big blow to hear when he had passed away.
Huge.
Yeah, the only director that I ever bought anything for after a film, he was a big tennis shoe guy, so I got him these freaking $400 kicks that he just absolutely loved, and
some Jordans.
So it was cool. And I'm trying to think where they were. I think they might have been Jordans. I think they might have been. I can't even remember now what they were, but and again, I got his family thought enough of me, and his son at the time was a younger kid, and he got along with him, and they invited me to his funeral service in LA, which I kind of really felt honored by, and so again, look back on that with a lot of really, really fond memories.
Good movie, fun movie to watch.
Great movie.
Yeah.
That seems like
Could
a
have been a
time where
lot
you were
better
able.
movie.
That seems like a time where you were
could have been a
able
lot
to.
better movie. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. We're on a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
It seems like that's the first movie where you got to really make a character. It wasn't just a walkthrough or a stand there. It was like you were a huge part of that deal. You were a huge cog.
Yeah, it was. And the first chance I was able to, again, because of Harold and kind of the comfortability of feeling that, when you're on a set with guys like Jack Black, and there was numerous people on that set that you were like going, oh shit, man, I just want to get my lines straight and not fuck up. But he allowed me to kind of improv a little bit. Nice. And so some of the funniest things, or even some of the funniest things I said, were things I just improv. I'll kill you where you stand. Is a line that people will use. And I made that up on the spot.
Oh! Whoa! Hey! What's going on here?
I will kill you where you stand.
Oh, a shooting star. That's the best.
And, they loved it, to the point where at the end of the show, end of the movie, Michael Cera uses that line like to mimic me, going, I'll kill you where you stand. So, yeah, it was pretty fun.
You pick up that bag of Camel Duck.
Yes, sir.
Hang on to it all day. Hustle up, ladies. These donkeys don't pack themselves.
I will kill you where you stand.
Relax.
They cut a little off the end, but there's plenty more of that kid.
No, this is my woman. You stay away from her or I'll kill you where you stand.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Just go. Get out of here or I'll kill you where you stand.
Thank you, Ted.
Are you?
It was a great chance to be over that a long period of time where you actually feel comfortable kind of making something out of nothing. So
there were a lot of physical scenes in that one, Matt. What's it like preparing for all the physical scenes that you've played, the things that you've done that you've had to do, the fighting and swords and whatever?
Yeah,
whatever.
It's always fun, but it's always a lot of work. People say, "Oh, it must be a lot easier than football," and I got to be honest, it's been harder. It's obviously, Chuck, this, but I've battled with knee issues for a while, and ever since I retired, it's always been something that I can't run a lot. I can't do a lot of physical stuff standing up and doing it before my knees really start to hurt. And it's one thing to be able to run and do something, but to have to do it like, let's say 10 or 15 times, right. It gets tough. I've probably had come out sore and with more injuries or more lagging sort of hurts on my body from acting than just about anything else. I find now that I'm on most sets, I bring my ice machine with me, and I'm in between at lunch. I'm eating lunch and I'm icing my knees down. So if I didn't play football for 14 years, I would be embarrassed about that. But screw that. I put in my time. So it can get tough. For Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I did some choreographed fighting, and the choreographed stuff is always
Every Inhuman is here for a reason and serves a purpose. I believe Lash's purpose is to kill Hive.
We're being attacked by, I don't know, some kind of a monster. You shouldn't do that. You've lost a lot of blood. I strongly advise against that.
Where's James?
He's on a bear run. I suggest we do the same, or at least the running part.
Stay away from him!
That's always a kick, because just to kind of get in with a fight coordinator and work out a fight and be able to have you're saying, what happens and how it goes is a lot of fun to do.
How much contact is there on those choreographed things? I mean, I know in Rocky was they were punching each other for real, but like, I mean, do you guys go there?
You do your best. You know, I've gotten to know a lot of stunt guys, and there are tricks. There are a lot of tricks to avoid, you know, actually getting hit or hitting someone. So it's pretty technical. It happens every now and then. Most of the time, you know, the biggest thing is how to pull a punch. You know, when you punch somebody and stopping just short of hitting them, or just kind of hitting them enough to where they can feel it.
I don't know anything about that, Matt. I don't know anything about that.
You know everything about that. I did a quick 2-day shoot. Actually, it was 1-day shoot with again, I'm gonna forget his name. Vince Vaughn. Let me start that again. So I did a film with Vince Vaughn, and it was a 1-day thing, some pickups for a movie he did recently in the last couple of years. And I was playing a guy who was going to beat him up in an alley, and he must have been in a bad mood. And I look back on it after I saw the movie going, this is a shit movie. There's no wonder he was in a bad mood. But yeah. I had to do a thing where I had to punch him in the stomach, and he, for some reason, didn't like the fact that I was just barely touching him. And he got pissed at me at some point, and they were like one take away from going, look, if you can't do it, we'll switch roles, and you know, one of those things. So everyone's different. You know, it's a lot of stunt guys I've got to work with who are great, and I've learned how to do it pretty well. But it takes some timing.
I wasn't going to bring up We Are the Millers, except you brought it up, so we have to ask the gratuitous question. I mean, what perfume does Jennifer Aniston wear, man? Just for our demographic, you know.
Sure. Your demographic. I don't know what she smelled like, but she tasted really nice. No. So the first day of work for me was that her striptease. That was my first day of work. And in the script, it called for me, or for her, to come over to me and dance with me for 5 or 6 seconds. And so you can imagine, you know, my eagerness for the scene to get going and to start. Well,
enthusiasm,
I get a knock on my door.
I heard you were on time that day.
all those adjectives.
You weren't late.
I was early. I remember what I smelled like. They knocked on my door and said, look, we're changing the scene up, and she's not going to come over you and dance on you anymore. And it was a little bit of a heartbreak.
The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
Jen was really, really cool. She, from the get-go, was really sweet. Again, a lot of fun to make that movie. Made the most out of it because we added some lines to his character a little bit. You know, I didn't have very many, but you know, again, playing a pseudo Hispanic.
That's awesome.
Then not everybody knows this.
Somewhere along the line, they figured it was good enough. But yeah, she was always really cool.
You don't have to make any statements, Matt. I was just messing around.
No. Chuck, you broke up on me. I didn't hear what you said. Can you say it again?
I stopped. I was just, you know, I was going to start into another question about something else. Didn't let you finish. We got the delay. That's
no. I was going to say that was a lot of fun movie. That was a great movie to make. A lot of fun. Again, I remember, you know, being in insane shape for that movie. I was down to like 270-ish, and for me, that's pretty thin. When you have to take your shirt off on camera, you automatically start preparing. But yeah, between Jennifer Aniston and the director, they were great, and there was a lot of rewrites during that shoot, so we had to be very patient with everything, and so it was a lot of fun. And God, you guys are killing me. I can't remember what's the guy from Saturday Night Live who starred in the movie. I should have thought about this earlier. Anyway, bottom line is everybody was very cool, and it was a really great shoot.
Awesome. I was just gonna start telling the story that Matt played in the NFL for 14 years. So people have always thought that he was a football player who turned into an actor. But the truth of the matter is, before you played in the NFL, you were an actor in college with your first movie. Is that correct?
It is correct. I don't spread that truth very often. I was a senior in college, and I was really good friends with the athletic trainer, Jack Ward, who had been there for since the 50s probably. Anyways, he came in a film, low budget film. They need somebody. I suggested you, and so for about a week I spent in Venice Beach doing a movie called Full Contact. I think I got paid about $200 for about a week of shooting, and that was kind of where I first sort of said, oh, even though this is a shitty movie and a kind of a the perks weren't there, that was the kind of where I first said, this is something that I think I can do. So that was kind of fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt, I think that we should work on bringing it back.
Yeah, I think I got
as a cult movie, because it actually isn't a bad movie. It's it's a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of deal.
It's in that category.
Some good scenes in there that you could put in your reel, but you don't. But I'd like to see you looking that. See how young you look back then.
Yeah, I got the when I got the DVD. No, it wasn't even DVD. It was a
VHS.
It was a
VHS.
What do you call it? A big
Betamax.
VHS. Thank you. It was I got the VHS for that, and I was on the cover as one of the pictures, and so that was always kind of a cool thing, I'm in like 2 or 3 scenes, and I got myself on the box.
Nice.
Did you connect, Matt, to that acting feeling at all once you started to become an actor? Was there something that you look back and went, I really dug it then, or was it just a random deal?
Like I said, I did the movie in college, and I kind of thought, this is something really cool, As you know, I've always had that sort of that goofy sort of outlook on a lot of things, and sort of that looking at the funny aspect of everything. And as I've told many times before, it was only after I started hosting radio and TV shows during my career that I started thinking that I had a little bit of a natural ability for it. And not until your good friend, or our good friend Jay, one year suggested I talk to an agent, who dealt with a lot of ex-athletes, and was working with a lot of ex-ball players, and doing a lot of commercial work. And so I met with this guy, and he said, he goes, if you know this first agent of mine, he's so ambivalent about everything, and like, take some pictures, send me, we'll do it, whatever you want. And it was only then when I kind of thought, let's give it a shot, see what happens. I knew that my career was coming to an end, and I knew I needed something else, and I wasn't sure what that was. I thought for a while it was going to be, football analyzing, or being on camera, something with football games. But the other side of it was, let's see what the acting thing can do. And it was, I was fortunate enough to book my first commercial that I actually went out on. It was a football guy in a Campbell soup commercial with Terrell Davis and Kurt Warner, who I had just ended up winning the Super Bowl with.
Right.
And I say with, being that I was a glorified spectator, but but yeah, it was back in 2000 when I did my first commercial, and the cool thing was, Chuck and Tom, is that I booked things right away. I was booking commercials like right away, and so it was really cool. I ended up doing the David Spade stuff and a couple other really.
I'd like to redeem my credit card miles.
Yeah, no.
All you ever say is no.
And yet you keep calling.
That's it. I'm coming to find you. I am tired of no.
Ooh, I'm shaking in my bright yellow shirt.
You're going down.
Go from no to no hassle with Capital One No Hassle Rewards. There are no blackout dates on any airline, anytime.
What's in your wallet?
Well, they're really cool commercials that I was kind of becoming known for, was all these cool commercials. And yeah, so it was only then that I kind of thought, okay, am I just a sometime-er, or can I really do this? And so when I retired, started giving it a shot.
I'm assuming there was a ton of urgency in your NFL career, like just to make the team, get to the next team, don't get cut. I'm sure it was a very stressful thing for the most part. Was that the way it was for booking jobs and becoming an actor? Did you have to like constantly worry about your next job, or did you just kind of like, yeah, man, if it comes, it comes?
Well, in acting, it was a huge fear for me. And there's a funny saying in the acting world, is that you never really stop to enjoy what you're doing. You stress about getting an audition, you get the audition, and you stress about doing the lines and doing a good audition. You maybe get to the second round and you stress about that. You end up getting the job, and now you're stressed about doing a good job on set. And by the time you're on set, you're thinking, shit, man, I got to get the next job. Yeah. So it's very, very stressful. Did you have a
5-year plan?
Even though I did sign post-career.
No, like, did you give yourself a window for the acting?
For the acting.
Yeah.
Not really. Again, because I started booking commercials right away and was making good money. I thought, oh shit, here we go. This is going to be it, man. I'll do this for another 15 years. And, I started making six figures, and I thought, well, what else can you ask for after a 14-year career? But it was only after trying to go for the bigger roles and the better roles and the roles that required literally acting skills, that's when I thought, okay, I'll just keep going. And if I can get, if I go for a year that I don't get a job, or things kind of dry up, or agents and people start saying, man, I think you've gone as far as you can go, then I was going to make decisions. I always kind of thought I could always fall back on, going to work on a teleprompter for football games, or for a while I wanted to be, excuse me, I wanted to be Tony Siragusa on the sidelines. I thought that was the best job ever. If I could be on the sidelines and you throw 2 or 3 lines out every game, that was the life right there. So that was kind of my backup. But again, I didn't put it into a time frame. I just thought, let's just keep going. And you know what? That's, I think, been, I don't know, for me anyways, a little bit of the light behind my dim-witted thoughts, is just put your head down and go. Don't worry about what the big time plan is. Don't think about where you're supposed to be in 5 years, or all that stuff. I just kind of put my head down and took it little by little, and kind of took it a day or a job at a time. And, nice. I played 14 years, but I never made the great money, and I bounced around to 6 different teams, and I probably ended up signing in 14 years, probably 10 different contracts, that were, most of them were from year to year. But I always just felt like if I did the work and worked hard enough, that it would come. Now, there are millions of people that are out there that say that, and it just doesn't happen.
Sure.
And there's no question I was very fortunate to be in the spots that I was and the spot that I am, But I think kind of having that no die attitude and the why not me mentality has served me well.
I like
How's that for serious?
Did you get to a point, Matt? Did you get to a point where you went, oh man, I got to take an acting lesson, or I got to start taking acting lessons, or what was that moment where you kind of went, okay, this is the next level that I have to get ready for?
Yeah, absolutely. I did that when I was done playing ball, and I knew that I kind of made that choice, like, hey, I'm gonna see what I can do in this world of acting, and to do that, I knew that I had to start getting into acting classes, and I did right away. Excuse me. Got with an acting coach again, I sought out a guy who had dealt with ex-athletes and sort of knew how to relate sports and into the acting world,
right,
in a way that I could understand it. And so the great thing about what I've been able to do is that I've always had good instincts, and I've heard that a lot from producers and directors and things like that. My instincts have always been really good about kind of either where the joke is or where that kind of thing. And so it's just about getting there. I've told the story about, when I first started acting, I was like this all the time. I thought you had to move around and be physical and all, and what I really needed to do was fucking plant my feet on the ground and not move and just be, and be able to speak, whether it be, sadness, anger, laughter, but be able to be still about it. And so anyway, yeah, that really worked for me, and my coach at the time, Stuart Robinson, really nurtured that and really helped me along the way kind of get to that next level of understanding why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, understanding my instincts being true, and how to kind of put those on screen, and kind of took me to that next level of thinking, because you really do. You have to kind of, there's a lot of people that have it naturally. There are a lot of ex-athletes and entertainers, musical people that have sort of those personalities that can kind of just move right into it.
The Robinsons were a family
process that goes along with it. And you have to,
the Robinsons were a family that they were involved. I knew his wife through St. Bernard's High School, and the kids that went there, and
she was a police officer,
and she ended up, the girls were dancers, and they had been involved in all the dancing stuff, right. And they were friends with Debbie Allen, who was the Cosby, yep. doing all the choreographers, and then it was Pauly Abdul's and all those people that were involved. So they brought a really cool deal to St. Bernard's, like a Hollywood kind of a deal, and Matt was working with Stuart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting connection.
Yeah.
Matt, were you the type of guy that, okay, I'm going to be an actor now, I'm going to scream it from the rooftops, or were you totally down low, quiet, just trying to book jobs, keeping it, I'm sure there wasn't a lot of people that were like, yeah, dude, you're going to be the next leading man, or you're going to be the next action hero, like, no offense, but I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, were you out there and just like owning this goal and this dream, or were you just kind of plugging along?
That's an interesting question, Tom. I guess I should ask you, as someone who's known me for a long time. I don't think that well, I mean, seriously, I'd be curious to know what your perception of it is. There's no question that at times I am proud of what I'm doing and have done, and have a lot of confidence in what I've been doing. But I don't think I ever, at least in my head, ever sort of had this feeling of like, yeah, man, I've made it now. Let me, I never felt that way. Because again, when you're in that situation, when you're working next to people who really have the chops and who have been doing it for decades, it's very humbling. It's a very humbling thing. It's that old sort of adage of one day they're going to wake up and realize that I'm not any good at all, and I'm going to be done.
Right.
You know. But so everything's been a learning lesson. You know, everything's been a little bit. You get a little bit of confidence doing good work and doing good things. So it's been a long time. I think obviously booking a lot of commercials early on allowed me to kind of have a little bit of that. Just walking into a room with other actors and having them go, "Oh shit!" I had a guy once say, "Oh shit, Matt's here. I can leave." You know, which is really crazy to say, but the idea that I was booking a lot of commercials at the time, and he thought, "Shit, if Matt's here, he's going to get this."
Yeah.
Where in reality, it's just all about who's in the room. You know, I went from the rooms where there were the guys who could barely speak an acting role, where I knew I was better than even early on, to, you know, get into rooms where there were some serious chops going on, and you're like, okay, let me just see if I can fool them today. Wow. So I you know, I still don't think that I feel like I'm much further than when I started, but I definitely think I've gotten a little bit better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the type of guy I'm not telling anybody about this podcast until it's brilliant. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just kind of working at it, doing it down on the down low. Chuck is encouraging us, and, you know, and then when it hits, and it's going to be on its own. You know, it's like its own living thing. And I just didn't know,
right?
Because you've had this miraculous thing where you had two careers, kind of the same length, it seems like, and two different things, and sort of starting over in a weird way, kind of a different physical path and then an emotional, spiritual path, or whatever you want to call it. And I just, the journey to me is unbelievable. I mean, I wish we could sit down and just talk about it. It's unbelievable.
Thank you, Tony.
It doesn't seem like you had a GPS. It seems like you just went for it, and here's where you are, you know. That's unusual.
Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it. And by the way, let me say this. I'm freaking proud of both of you guys for doing this. I think it's awesome. And I guess maybe just you even saying that makes my answer a little clearer, in that, you know, I would take just about, and I'm not going to say anything, but I would take just about anything that would further the skills along, you know, even if it's a shitty little role in a shitty movie, which I've done a few of those. You know, the idea of continuing to grind and to figure it out as you go. And you know, I think now more than ever, people appreciate the idea of the grind, and that nobody's freaking doing it perfect, and we're all trying to figure it out. It goes along with what I'm doing too. You know, there have been a few things where I've done going, what the fuck am I doing this for? You know, this doesn't make any sense. But again, it's all part of that grind, man, that I kind of dig and enjoy. Yeah, I mean, I had a guy one time say to me, he goes, "Do you realize you've taken like jobs, or you've had jobs that are basically the 1% of the world? I mean, you're doing things that twice, you know," and that's hard for me to freaking fathom. It really is. That's hard for me to kind of wrap my head around that. But, you know, man, I've been real fortunate. I've been real fortunate to put myself in good places and just do the best with it I can.
Matt has always been. I've gotten to share a lot of time. You know, we've gone to a lot of shows. We've been able to be fortunate to get around his sets a little bit, and you know, and obviously being brothers, we spend, you know, our quality Hollywood time has been you know, going on for years and years and years, and we got to see. And the fun thing is that everywhere we went for a while, for sure. And I think just because we're not going there doing as much now, but you know, everybody that knew him and went, "Hey, Matt Willig," or "I know you," and they always ended up having a drink with us, or they had the 5 minutes, or they had a chance to get to know him and just go, "Yeah." And I swear I'd be in the background, and you know, sometimes and watching, and as he would leave, you know, invariably they'd turn and go, "Dude, that dude was cool, man. Look, yeah," you know, and they'd walk, you know, we'd walk away and we'd laugh, and it'd be a cool deal. But, you know, as far as his star quality went, there were a lot of people that recognized him in the world. Obviously, you know, he's 6'7", and, you know, as a presence and all that kind of good stuff. And, you know, but it was always a cool vibe. It was always, you know, and I think Matt used to get really annoyed with me because I thought I knew a lot more about the business than I really did, and he tolerated me talking about it. But again, I got to see that part of it for him, and see his success that way, and that's cool.
It's a real interesting point, Chuck. It's a real interesting point in kind of furthering the answer, Tom, is that when you're 6'7", 6'8".
Come on, you're 6'10". Come on. What are you
talking
talking
about?
about?
For this role I'm in right now.
Oh, okay.
But when you walk around, being this tall, it sort of follows you. It's a weird thing, I can't tell you how many times I've walked out in public and people will talk about you like you're not there, and you just sort of end up, you hear it, but you drown it out. I've had my daughters go, "Oh my God, that people were talking." You have to get used to that sort of just walking into a room, whether I was an actor, an athlete, or just Joe Blow walking in the store. When you're this big, that there's going to be eyes on you, and so it's a little bit of a weird dynamic that you kind of figure out in life.
So I'm going to go deep down and reach out to Tommy a little bit, because Tommy tells a great story about seeing you and your rib cage and stuff like that. So I think you should tell.
That was not for Matt's ears, man.
No, I think you should talk about that impression. That impression's
all right. I got two things. I have two things I have to say. Number one, when I went to see you in the Rose Bowl, I get the program out and it says Matt Willig trivia. He's the tallest football player at 6'10" that's ever been at USC. So I know you can neither confirm nor deny because it's going to screw up your roles, but I understand. Come on. But tying into that,
I've been getting shorter as I go along.
Okay, good. Okay, that's fair. But I was in the locker room. I was directly across from you in the den, directly across from you. I don't know if you remember that. And I just remember you and I, for some reason, were always sort of the last ones out. And I remember when you would take off your shirt, man, and you would have the grills, man. It looked like somebody, like you laid on a barbecue from getting smacked with the face mask. And I always was like, man, that guy better get low. I don't know why he doesn't get low.
He's 7'2".
I know. I couldn't ever wrap my mind around.
Bend over, man. I'm telling you. That's why they moved him. That's why they moved him to offense.
Yeah, that was the deal. I was like, why is Matt freaking playing D-line? My little small brain, and I wasn't going to confront you, obviously. And I just remember, like, you chasing quarterbacks, and even if you had a good angle on the quarterback, I was like, that poor guy, he ain't never. But trying to get the edge on you at left tackle, that's fucking. Getting the edge is impossible.
Oh man, I got some beautiful pictures. I have beautiful pictures from Mr. Ward, man. I'll show you some beautiful athletic shots.
I mean, talk about lack of coaching right there. Like, I mean, come on, man, get this guy off the line.
Well,
you were savagely torn up. It looked like 12 Years a Slave, except on the front, dude. I was like, this fucking guy can't, like, I mean, oh my God, his blood and like hickeys and everything else. I was like, Matt.
That is classic.
We didn't have any dry fit back then to protect you, but
right.
I was just like, ooh.
Oh, that's funny, man.
Tom often talks about the leadership value of your senior class and the guys that took control of that deal, and how frightening and interesting it all was.
Yeah, those were tough, man. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was thinking that, I'm trying to think about your career. I didn't realize you had been with 6 teams. I thought for some reason it was 4. And sort of the stuff we went through in high school where we had multiple coaches and multiple defensive coordinators and literally 4 different offensive coordinators. And, that idea that we already knew that we had to be independent and we were there for each other and we had to be together. And there had to be some leadership coming from the locker room. To me, when you tell stories or when I hear stories about you in the locker room in the NFL, I'm like, yeah, man, of course. I mean, that was your value. That's a value that you brought. You're a value-added guy.
Thank you, brother. No, that's really cool of you to say, and it's always hard for me to look back and get a good feel of what I was early back then. Because we're all kids. But I remember distinctly trying to hold on to our St. Paul values as a program during a time when, you know, Rick Reddy, we'll say God rest his soul, didn't give much shit about it, and it was a whole sort of deal. And you guys know the stories behind it, but for us as players, trying to hold on as best we could to these sort of what we knew as swordsman values, and trying to hang on to them as we, like you said, moved through all these coaches, changing up from, you know, St. Paul football to kind of this who knows what aerial attack and all this other craziness.
Well, I remember, Matt, that,
you know,
I think it's an interesting conversation to have with you now. And I don't know if this matters. I don't know if this matters to the podcast, but I remember you being a very serious and driven human being, like fully locked in to your responsibility and your future and what you needed to achieve. For you to say, and for you to spend time talking about your journey in the NFL and your journey as an actor, it's very, very different. And I wonder if, when that was where you released the demons of expectation and carrying on the Willig name and all CIF, where you got rid of all that and said, I'm just going to be my dude. I'm going to go play as long as I can. I'm going to act as long as I can. I'm going to love my kids. I'm going to love my family. I mean, you know, to me, there's a light bulb moment there. I don't know if you know when that happened, but I remember you being like almost unapproachable sometimes because you're so fucking mad, you know?
Yeah.
But if you have a brother like Chuck, that's probably why you're mad.
Well, and Chuck will tell you, and my friends will still tell you, that I still see the world and how it functions, and I'm sort of an angry guy. There's no question. I've always been most comfortable being by myself, not having a ton of friends, or, you know, but at the same time, Tom, I'm a jokester.
Yeah.
So
100%.
It's this weird dichotomy of that. That's funny that you say that. It's an interesting weighing. I did feel a lot of pressure in high school to carry on the Willig name. I think I felt like I was the first guy who battled with not only being maybe more of a basketball guy, but also maybe not the most natural athlete, as my brothers up to that point had been, you know, with the four previous to me, who felt like, you know, those guys were real football players, my older brothers. And for me, it was always it was, you know, me, a basketball dude trying to play football and be an athlete, you know, that kind of thing. And so, and again, as I started to come up against, you know, and immediately realized that not only am I too skinny and not enough of an athlete, they're going to keep me on the defensive line at 6'7", 6'8", and I'm going to play behind All-Americans for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So there was a point where I almost wanted to quit, and almost wanted to kind of say this was my journey and it's gone as far as I could. And then I think at some point in there, maybe my junior year, Tom, I started to kind of let that go, let the pressure of it go. And again, for a time, I thought this is not me. I almost went and played basketball at SC.
Nice.
I literally
could have used your help.
Turned it in and went and played basketball. George Raveling at the time said, "Come on out." I spent the off seasons in college playing hoops with all the hoopers. You know, Harold Miner, and freaking. I tell a story about playing against Cheryl Miller. I used to have to guard her in the gym.
Nice.
But so it was at that point, I think, Tom, if I look back on it really quickly and think about it, there was that time where I kind of just said, "Fuck it, man. You got to be you." And whether that means you're a player down the road, you know, or not, just roll with it, you know. And then I ended up, you know, starting at SC for a while, and then got replaced by a younger guy. And so there was all these obstacles where I kind of said, they're basically telling me to fuck off.
Right.
You know, and I can either go, yeah, or I can say no. and I can, and I was the most inspirational my senior year at SC.
Wow.
So I became sort of, I found that aspect. Yeah, I found that aspect of myself, and realized that there was other things that I could do and still play the ball for a while and have some fun, and and make plays when I got in and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I see football as a very artistic thing when I draw a play on a thing, or when I watch the O-line move in unison in slow motion, and the beauty and the power and the it's just fantastic to me. And I often wonder if that really stimulates that artistic side of your brain at that level, where you're no longer, you're there at the peak, and now there's beauty in the game. It's not just pain, and there's joy, and there's pleasure, and there's a rush, and I wonder if that's part of your art journey, your artist journey.
You know what? That's a good point, man. And I that's something no, it's a great point. And who knows? I don't remember thinking that way, but I think that there were, again, having to get all those over those obstacles, moving to the O-line early on in my career at the beginning, finding a coach that really believed in me for the first time in a while. As an O-line coach, this guy named Larry Bechtel was my first coach in New York. Huge technician, so every foot had to be right. But for me, that's where I started to blossom and thought, and sort of bringing out my aggressive nature that I had from defense and being able to move it over to offense. And at the same time, you're right, having that sense of being a part of a group, moving in unison, and having that sort of that feel for being able to take over a game, as a unit and things like that, where I started to blossom and my love for the sport came out again. But I think, again, I've always sort of had that sort of left brain think a little bit. I've always sort of saw the art side of things. And again, it was just sort of was nurtured throughout time, in different areas. I went to college and I thought I was going to be a city planner. I wanted to get into city government and be a city planner, right. But again, it was planning. It was working the art of figuring out how the city worked and how things. So I've always sort of had that. But it's interesting, number one, your take on it and sort of how you saw things. And number two, really my mindset of how I sort of maneuvered myself to be in these positions.
I'm really interested in the mindset because it seems like you got a lot of hints that maybe you didn't belong, and you just ignored them. And at the very first statement that you made is that you hated all the coaches, or you hate all coaches generally. Like I say, I hate referees, you hate coaches. Yeah, exactly. Give you the salute. Right. But I mean, so it was just a matter of just ignoring it and waiting for somebody to put the slam the door in your face, or did you really just such a distaste for those guys that you just I don't believe that motherfucker. He's stupid. He's dumb.
It was a little bit of both. It was, again, one of my main mantras is why not me?
I love that.
Why not me? Why are they telling me no when I know that that's not necessarily the case? Sometimes that's just blind faith.
Yeah.
Or stupidity. But again, it was always that I know it's out there for me. I know I have it somewhere. Right. It just needs to be nurtured. And I felt like, the coaches in my career, for the most part, especially through college and even in the NFL for a while, Tom, when you're not the most talented, when you are slow-footed, when you like to joke around, when you're maybe not the most serious guy when it comes to time to be serious, when all those things are sort of picked apart, again, you can either go, fuck yeah, okay, you're right, excuse me while I fade away, or maybe you're not right, and maybe I've got my own way of doing it. And whether it's going to be the guy who makes $5 million a year in the NFL and becomes a starter on one team for 7 years, or it's me who is going to be a good player in the NFL who can back up several positions and is going to play 14 years instead of maybe 7 because he can do that. And he's smart enough to be able to fit himself into a team where he needs to, be a motivator for his players, for his teammates, and be a nice fit. And that's sort of how my career sort of went. And I just accepted that, you know. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I played with that had amazing amounts of talent. I mean, talent that I could never even dream of having. But they either didn't have the mindset. Number one, they probably didn't have the brains, because it takes, you got to be smart to play in the NFL, especially as an O-lineman. and number two, that mentality of, well, shit, man, if I'm not starting and I'm not the guy, then fuck that. I'm going to go home and do what I want to do. And,
did you think that there was going to be
a lot of guys?
Did you think there was going to be a 15th year, Matt, or did you just knew it was 14? That was it. Did you make the choice, or did they?
You never make the choice.
Okay, all right. No hang 'em up.
Your body tells you. Yeah. Your body tells you first, and then you wait for a coach or a
GM,
a general manager. Thank you, to confirm it. I knew the last couple of years I was in a really, my prime years were kind of year 4 through 10. And where my body was feeling good, I was really becoming a really good player, yet I was playing behind guys who I just couldn't get in front of for whatever reason. And there were different reasons. The last 3 years or so, and really the last 2, because I was going to start 1 year for the Panthers, and I kind of hurt my knee again. And to the point where I was just bone on bone on both knees. And when that happens, and you're trying, like you said, to get low and to be able to freaking kick back on a pass set when you got somebody who's running a 4.7, running at you, and you just can't do what your body wants you to do, or your body won't do what you want it to do. That's when you kind of go ahead.
Is it possible then that you started getting those marks on your belly again at that time when you get in the end of your career when you couldn't bend, just like in the beginning?
Bull rush.
Oh God, that's tough though. That's a tough deal. Knees not being.
Look, man. Like you said, everybody goes through it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, pretty much every athlete, at some point says either I'm not good enough to go to the next level, or my body won't take me there. You know, so it happens to everybody. It's it just happened a lot later for me. Yeah. And you guys know how bow-legged I am. I've had coaches and trainers say, "How the fuck can you run it all on those legs?" So
I can't wait for you to be in a Western.
I really don't.
Who were the best coaches you played for, Matt?
Hey, I'm just
head coaches.
Like I said before, a guy named Larry Bechtel was my first guy, and I really needed someone who could be a technician as a coach and teach me every step. So he was really, he carried me. He was the coach for the first 3 years, and he carried me for a while. Who else? There were things I could take from Art Shell. He wasn't really an O-line coach, but as far as, working the technique and stuff like that, Art was good. I loved playing for Mariucci in San Francisco. He
Pat
really
Morris.
knew how to run a team. Pat Morris, thank you. I loved Pat. Pat was great. Pat was a little more of your buddy than he was, the yell and scream coach, which is probably why one of the few coaches I did like. But again, Pat knew what he was talking about. Pat knew a lot about how to play O-line as a group. He really was a great group teacher of playing great O-line. Who else?
Trivia time, Tom. I got trivia time. Hang on, Matty. I got a trivia question for Pat Morris.
Is it for your? Yes.
Former lumberjack.
Oh, nice.
Was my offensive line coach when I was a freshman. We won the Big Sky Championship and rushed for 3,400 yards.
Anyways, my O-line coach was Andy Reid at NAU. How about that?
Yeah.
Pretty good. Not too shabby.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Reid, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just talked to Pat. I just talked to Pat through Facebook the other day. He's still doing it. He's coaching for the Bills.
Nice.
Amazing. I love John Fox, even though he had a little weird way of doing some things, and he was one of those cliche guys, which, again, as a coach, I disdain.
You hate that. You hate that.
The art of the cliche. I can't. The art of the cliche drives me insane.
Well, then what was
But
it
it's
about
funny
him?
because
What
one
was
of
it
his
about
biggest
him that you
cliches
liked?
was, again, he knew how to run a team. He knew when to be the asshole, but he also knew how to come into a locker room and chat it up with guys and be enough of a human being that that guys wanted to battle for. I'm definitely a fan of what they call the new age coach, just because I think that the old way of beating a player down, bring him back up, to me, it was always such a negative way of doing things. But I love that about John. And again, John, along with Mariucci, knew how to treat the veteran players and always gave them a little more respect than the younger guys, just because of what they had, what we as veterans had gone through, and it came at a good time in my career, and so that's probably why.
Nice. I want to kind of bring it around. I want to hear a little bit of stories about you were involved for years with the last guy in the draft.
Oh.
At the NFL draft,
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant, yeah. I always thought that was a neat deal that you got involved in that, and we're part of their banquet for years. And can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I've been honored. I've been doing it for really ever since I was like a sophomore in college. So that's probably 30 years. I got involved because the guy who was running it, Paul Salata, was a huge alumni for SC.
Tell the people that don't know. Tell the people that don't know what exactly that is. What that's all the Mr.
Sure. If you don't know what it is, then look it up. No, Mr. Relevant is a
Google.
is a celebration of the last pick of the NFL draft. So the last pick, what used to be the 12th round when I was around, now is the 7th. Last player picked, who is usually what they consider someone who's not relevant. They choose him as Mr. Irrelevant. He is then at some point in the off season before this first year brought to Newport Beach, California, and is kind of hailed for the week and treated like a king. And they have banquets for him, and they take him surfing, and they do pub crawls. It's just a whole week of amazing fun. And there have been some good ones, some guys who have lasted around and done well. Again, back when it was 12 rounds, it was a lot harder. So they really were irrelevant for the most part, because it was really hard at that point to make a team as a 12th round draft choice. But yeah, I got involved through Paul Salata and his family, who just took a liking to me. And I think I sort of fit their mold early on. They thought, this is a guy who's not really, the mainstream guy. He may one day be Mr.
Paul's a USC guy, correct?
Oh, yeah. Big time alumni. Played in the NFL, played for the 49ers, and big time alumni guy. Anyway, so I got involved and just took part in a few things that they were doing. I would speak at their banquet for a few minutes, and one year they had a fashion show, and then I would show up to a few things. So anyways, I had been starting to speak at their events for 20 years when I could, and had a streak for a while of doing it nonstop for about 20 years. And then they asked me about 10 years ago to get involved with the nonprofit that they were doing, and I got involved in that. That sort of went away. And again, it's always fun. It's always basically how it goes is you meet at the banquet and you roast. It's a roast for the athlete, and I have sort of worked my way into a tradition of kind of being the only guy basically that under 70 years old that comes and likes to have fun. I always toast the guy with a drink. If he doesn't drink, I end up drinking both drinks. And I'm one of the few guys who still sort of roasts. Nowadays it's not very kosher to roast the guy anymore. You don't want to say anything wrong, but it's been really cool. It's been a lot of fun to be part of it. I did it last year, and they probably won't have it this year, but it's been really cool. And it's been something that now I get people that, 2 months before the banquet are hitting me up going, dude, we can't wait. We got our tickets. We can't wait for your talk and for your drink. And, I always act like I'm a little drunk. I always sort of curse in front of you a few times and kind of just make it fun. Yeah, exactly. Because when I started the thing, 30 years ago, it was all these old guys. It was like, I don't know if you know these names, but Sammy Lee, who was like an Olympic diver back in the 40s. And it was like Jim Tunney, the old referee. And there was all these guys that were in their 60s and 70s. And back then it was a lot of racial sort of humor. They would make fun of Mexicans and they'd make fun of black people. And it was all these crazy fun things that you would do in Orange County that, again, are a little crass. But and it's changed a little bit, but always enjoyed being a part of it because I always felt like I was sort of in that same sort of school of being the guy who was, as we've talked about, sort of, not supposed to be there, but sort of kind of made it.
What's on your Matt? What's on your playlist for Australia, man? I gotta know. Like, what are you listening to on the other side of the equator?
I like hard rock, so it varies, man. It all depends on what I'm trying to do. The only thing I can do right now in my room is work out. I'm lucky enough to have a little bit of weights here in the room, and I got my Beats pill, so I play it loud. I'm like I could keep my things in, but I play it loud so everyone hears me. I play Tool and I play anything that rocks.
A little Pantera still.
Still a little Pantera every now and then. Yeah. All kinds of anything. Like I said, anything that freaking gets my heart going and rocks it out. That's what I love.
Well, my wish for you. My
Chuck
wish
makes
for
fun
you
of me.
Chuck makes fun of me. Do you remember the being backstage at Pantera, the first show after Phil Anselmo OD'd and almost died, and Tommy was with us.
Yeah, I was at Riverside.
He told me that. I was like, all right, yeah, I didn't remember that he was with us. So
yeah.
we were all three of us were together at that show.
We drove in the back. We kept driving. We kept going through security. We drove all the way up to the back door.
Well,
Yep.
I didn't want to drive through
the
there.
door.
You guys were like, just keep going. I'm like, my car's going to get towed. Just keep going. I'm the designated driver. Just keep going.
Yeah, we knocked on the back door and went through the back door, and before we knew it, we were there.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. That was a pretty fun, funny night.
Just act like you've been there, man. Act like you're supposed to be there.
What's the last show you've seen, Matt? Have you seen any shows before COVID? It's a tough question to ask right now, isn't it?
God, right?
Heartbreaker.
It's been so long.
Yeah. Did you have tickets?
Probably.
Okay, that's right.
Did
you have tickets for anything during? Did you have tickets for anything during the COVID?
They got canceled.
Harry Styles.
Oh, Styles.
Harry Styles, nice.
Black Crows. We were supposed to go.
Black Crows. I got them. We're going whenever. If you're in town, we'll be there. Yeah, it's a whole nother.
Yeah,
year.
no. It was. In fact, that was me and my buddy Curdy, Chuck, when we went down to the Orange County, to that Irvine place, and we saw Alice in Chains and Korn, and then came back and didn't you meet us for dinner? Didn't you meet us for drinks afterwards?
That was
that's a good show.
Trainees. Yeah,
that's a good show.
That was a great show. Got hooked up and went backstage, and yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah, we'll give a shameless plug to Phil Trainees on Long Beach Boulevard in Long Beach, one of the greatest restaurants known to mankind.
All
Great
time.
food, great atmosphere. Phil is one of the coolest guys on the planet. Phil has hosted USC and UCLA teams and players for 100 years, and those guys are. There's always somebody that is fun and famous and there, and it's usually Matt whenever he's there and whoever he's with. But yeah, it's Phil's.
He's a big swordsman guy.
A big what?
He's a swordsman guy. He's a swordsman guy. You know,
he does have a Stein helmet.
Him and Ansich were buddies for a long time.
Yeah,
That
that's true.
disqualifies him.
I'm glad you said that, Tom.
Yeah, you know, I work with his son, so.
That's true. Well, cool, Maddie. I don't know what else, Tommy. What else you got for him?
If you had Jeff Bezos money, what would you do to make this world better, or your community better, or your family better? Or what would you do with that loot?
Wow.
Because he ain't doing anything with it except counting it. So
yeah, well, he's doing something with it. I would work on kids programs. I would do a lot of stuff with kids to try and give every kid the opportunity to be able to do what they wanted to do, and whether it was sports or sciences or whatever. I think, and I'd probably buy out Instagram and TikTok, and I would disband them, and I would destroy them.
That's awesome. That's a perfect answer.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, man? Look, if I ever wanted to go into coaching, which I've fought for years, and who knows, one day I might. Crespi keeps trying to get me to go over there. By the way, I think St. Paul and Crespi are in the same league now. I think.
Yeah, they might be.
But I enjoy being around kids. Anytime I go to Chuck's to Pioneer in the last several years, I've always enjoyed being around the high schoolers and being able to implement a few things and talk to them. And you know, that's the biggest thing. Is it's not even the X's and O's. It's the trying to get them to understand the mentality of how to survive and how to overcome little things, you know?
Yeah.
I go to those things, Tom, and I see the kid who's not on the team for no reason. And you think about the kids that when we were in school who were on the team and had no business doing it, but they stayed with it and they freaking, you know, they stuck with it and just to be a part of the team. And those are the kids that I'd love to reach the most. So they would definitely be working with kids.
Nice. What is is there a person that really impacted your life that doesn't know? And you want to reveal?
Doesn't know. What if I say no? Will you cut that out?
Yeah, that's okay. That means you share your love. I mean,
you know what? That's interesting.
I mean, like Mike Stith.
That's a very. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, say what you want about Mike Stith.
No.
Say what you want about Mike Stith. You know, and,
win some games.
At the time, we hated Mike Stith. You know, 20 sophomores doing 200 up downs before you start practice.
That's right.
Every day, because he knew that like 80% of us were going both ways. We hated that, but again, you know, it definitely it made us tougher kids.
I told Chuck one of my favorite St. Paul moments of all time was getting to play with you guys with the 20 sophomores against Pius. I got to be a fucking linebacker behind an NFL fucking defensive tackle. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. It was the day of my life. I never got touched. Yeah, I never got touched.
Those were fun. That was fun. No, I think I don't know. You know, I there are probably times when I could look at my brothers and let them know how they've influenced me. But outside of that, and I've tried to let my father know in the last several years how much he has impacted my life. Some negative, some really, really positive. So, You know, I wish my mother was still here to be able to tell her that. But because I think when I look back at it, because my answer is so sort of vague and I'm not really sure, that to me tells me that my parents were the biggest influence, my family.
Love it.
And you know, I mean, as you know, my family and my parents, it says a lot. I don't think they even, you know, my parents weren't, my dad especially wasn't the biggest philosophical sort of touchy-feely sort of dad, but I think you learn as time goes on, as we all get older, the tough love aspect of things and how that can sort of help you out in life. And I think when you talk about what we've talked about over the last couple of hours, is that you know, the overcoming of odds and the overcoming of shit that happens in your life, that's what really makes you.
Yeah.
You know, it's the things that happen when shit goes wrong and shit goes bad. Whether you're dealing with health issues, you know, physical ailments or mentality or just overcoming, you know, whatever it is. Yeah. It's those things that you look back on and how you were raised and how you were taught how to get your ass up and keep moving, that really sort of
stay on the
influence you
path.
to move on.
Yeah. I mean, I have a tremendous fear as a parent that I didn't give my sons enough hardship for them to succeed in this tough world. It's very, and I can't imagine what it's like for you two gentlemen with daughters. You know, how are you able to tell your girls that life is tough and you got to be tough and you got to kick ass and everybody's coming at you?
Yeah. It's the hardest thing that I have to do because, like you said, there's a major part of me that wants to be the tough love dad, and because that's what you need.
You need it.
With girls, it is different because I think communication. It's very simply communication, and I don't think it's ever too late to start or to be able to put something on your kids to make them think about what they're doing. I'm constantly checking my daughters and asking them why they're thinking of, you know, why they're doing the way they're doing it, whether it's good or bad. You know, I mean, think about what you're doing. I always tell my daughters to look at the whole picture. You see is like really what's right in front of them, especially nowadays because it's like this on the phone. So I'm constantly telling my daughters to see everything, man. See the world around you, and that's how you react, and that's how you can move around. Because if you're not ready for things, that's when you get flattened, you know. And again, I just had a conversation with my daughter the other day about how she was feeling down about, you know, COVID world, and she's a senior in high school. And I kind of said to her, and you know, it's a little bit of that both worlds. I said, okay, you know, let's talk about what you're feeling. And at the end of the day, you wake up tomorrow and you get your ass up and stop feeling sorry for yourself and make it a better day and change the way you're feeling. You know, sometimes it's just as simple as changing the attitude about what you're thinking. You know, unfortunately, I think you guys are both great parents. I know a little bit about you, Tom, and I know obviously a lot about Chuck. And there's no guarantees that you could do everything right and say all the right things, and it's still gonna freaking be a mess, you know. But as long as your kids know that you're still gonna be there.
You hit the nail on the head. It's communication. It's being able to say what you need to say, and you know, I had a rule back in the day when they were little is you say more than what they can understand. When they start going, I don't get it, then you stay on that a little more, but you don't fall short of what you want to say. So, you know, there's no misconception as to the right and the wrong of things, and there's no misconception, you know, and it's a great way to give girls some power, you know, if they understand the, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, and how to survive it. It's not just, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but how do I survive? How do I make it in the world with, you know, all the intensity of that a woman has to go through? So, anyways, I've always watched. I was going to say earlier, this is, you know, talk about toughness. I said Matt was unfortunately one of 6 boys at a table that had to fight for the last pork chop, and so those guys, the young guys, when I was still around before I went away to college, they never got the pork chop. So and when I was gone, I think Greg never got any pork chops because Matt got the pork chop. There was no doubt that that fight and that anger was bred in us from little kids. When, everything was competitive all the way around, even when we didn't think it was competitive. The dinner table wasn't supposed to be competitive, but we were told that when my dad was on a shift where he wasn't working nights and he would be home for dinner, it was time to be quiet. So we would sit at a dinner table with 6 boys and watch. I got to sit at one head, my dad sat at the other end, and my mom sat down by my dad, and I got to watch across the table back and forth these guys make faces and whoopee noises and stuff that to make each other laugh. And the guy that had the milk coming out of his nose, that guy had to go to bed. That guy didn't get the last pork chop. It was great. They were great scenes of movie-esque kind of stuff that you watched just at the dinner table, and all the competitiveness.
You need a GoPro underneath the table, Chuck, so you can see what's happening underneath the table.
Well, I'm telling you, man, as soon as somebody would turn their back, there were guys reaching across the table, and the kicking and the fighting was constantly going on. But that's that growing up in the house of boys, I think we learned enough about boys, but then having daughters, man, it shifted a gear in your life where you had to be able to respond back to what made sense was your mother's. You go back to what was my mom like, and how.
Is there any nephews? Is there any boys, or are you guys all have girls?
No, there's what, four boys.
Oh, okay. For a while there was no boys though, right? For a while.
Yes.
Bob's got a son, and Greg's got two boys, and
that's awesome.
Who am I forgetting? And Craig, my brother Craig, has a son.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking time out. Missing lunch like this. I know you got to put the carbs in that belly for this role. I appreciate
It's all good. It's all good. Listen, let me take a minute because I do have to get going. I got another Zoom call for a fitting. I got to put some clothes on for somebody.
Speedo.
But let me just say this: I appreciate you guys, man. I'm really, really, really happy that you guys are doing this, both of you. I think it's a great mix, the two of you, and you guys will find your way. If we got to do this interview again, and you want me to come back and do it, I'll happily do it. You guys have asked Tom, you've asked some great questions, which I love, and some good thought-provoking shit.
You.
And thank you for giving me the time to be able to speak and share a little bit about my crazy shit that I got going.
Awesome. Yeah, and we didn't even have to force any politics on you, Matty.
Yeah, no politics, man. That's perfect.
I was going to. I don't know if you can see. It's hard to see. Yeah. I had it. It's too down. You can't see it. I had it paused on Trump, but.
It's the first fight. The first 5 minutes was almost a fist fight, so I can't wait to get back to it.
It's what I saw just before we started was they wouldn't shut up. They kept going back and forth, and Chris Wallace I thought his head was gonna explode.
I'm going to tell my class tomorrow that I can't believe that Australia has our debate live. That's amazing.
Because they're very much into
that's crazy
American politics. I mean, it's not as much. There's like 1 or 2 stations, but yeah, they're definitely going to show the debates. So. Again, guys, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Break a leg.
Don't worry about if it works or it doesn't. I was happy to be a part of it.
Thanks, cool, Matt.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Love to both of you.
Peace. Man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Man, how lucky are we?